This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Trump's second impeachment inches forward, but will Democrats secure a conviction? In China, a WHO-led team says lab leak theory is extremely unlikely as it completes its study on the origin of the coronavirus. An election standoff in Somalia as government and the opposition fail to agree on how presidential polls should be held. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Vivia. Here are more stories making headlines this hour. In business news, Nigeria's central bank orders financial institutions to close down all accounts involved in the transfer or exchange of cryptocurrencies. And in your sports, CGTN speaks to South Africa's legendary footballer, Benny McCarthy, the coach of Durban's Amazulu FC. Well, let's begin the hour in the U.S., where the second impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump has begun. The Senate voted 56-44 to proceed with the trial, saying it was constitutional. Our correspondent Philip Crowther brings us the latest from Washington.
Well, essentially what we saw here today was a last-ditch attempt, if you will, on the first day of this second impeachment trial of Donald Trump to actually get the whole case tossed out, because according to Donald Trump's lawyers, it is unconstitutional. Their argument essentially is this one: you cannot convict or even try a former president for something that he did while in office. They are saying that Donald Trump is now a private citizen and therefore can't be thrown out of office. Now, they're obviously right in that sense. He cannot be thrown out of office, but most legal scholars would say you can still have an impeachment trial that does convict a former president. So what happened here in the end, we had a vote of 56 votes to keep this trial going and 44 to stop it. Those 56, that was 50 Democrats plus those 6 Republicans who decided to side with their Democratic colleagues. So that means that on Wednesday, the impeachment trial itself really only gets going now that this has been decided. We could see an end of this trial maybe as early as Sunday, because this is a trial that will be held on Saturday and Sunday as well. Maybe it'll go into Monday or Tuesday of next week, but it'll be quick, much quicker than the first impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. Now, the reasons for this are multiple. First of all, because both Republicans and Democrats want to get this over with as quickly as possible. They've got different reasons for this. Republicans believe that the acquittal of Donald Trump is a foregone conclusion, and they're largely right with that. That is what we expect to see happen.
Earlier, we spoke with current affairs commentator Einar Tangen on Trump's impeachment trial. We asked him about the likelihood of a conviction.
The likelihood is very, very limited, but you can never underestimate Donald Trump's desire to self-destruct. I mean, he was furious at his first lawyer's presentation. It was meandering. No one knew what the heck he was talking about. It wasn't on point. He didn't. His second lawyer did a much better job. But it's quite possible that Trump will use his famous line, "You're fired." All right, remember, this legal team was put together not as the A team, not as the B team, as the C team in 1 week, because he fired his first set of lawyers. They all resigned. That's almost unheard of. So at this juncture, he is destroying his own case. And what happens hereafter is going to be on him. He has a solid Republican, enough votes to block this now. But if his legal team continues with these kinds of antics and aren't able to prove a case, and in specific, if they show that as the events were unfolding, Donald Trump was gleefully watching and encouraging these people to march on his vice president, Mike Pence, this could have a cascading effect which could push enough Republicans over the edge.
Well, let's now take a look at China's first Mars exploration mission. Tianwen-1 will initiate the braking sequence of the spacecraft. When the spacecraft approaches Mars, it's expected to be captured by the planet around the lunar New Year's Eve. After more than 200 days in flight, Tianwen-1 will finally reach its orbit around Mars Here's now a timeline of the mission.
China's Mars exploration mission was established in 2016. 4 years later, in April 2020, it was given the name Tianwen-1. The name Tianwen means questions to heaven in English, and it was numbered 1 as it's the first of China's missions to other planets. Carried by a Long March 5 rocket, the Mars probe was launched on July 23, 2020. It includes an orbiter, a lander, and a rover. After more than 2 months of travel, the probe sent back its first deep space selfie with the Chinese flag on the National Day, October 1st. It also coincided with the Mid-Autumn Festival. Several tasks have been completed during the journey, including capturing an image of the Earth and the Moon, 4 orbital corrections, and a deep space maneuver. On February 5th, the probe captured its first image of the red planet after a journey of nearly 200 days. Tianwen-1 will spend 2 to 3 months orbiting and surveying potential sites for a landing in May. The rover will then explore the red planet for about 90 days. It will examine the Martian soil and surface material, as well as its atmosphere and climate. Cao Bing, CGTN.
At a virtual summit between leaders, China vowed to deepen cooperation with Central and Eastern European countries. The meeting, which had initially been scheduled for last year, was delayed due to the pandemic. Liu Wei now takes us through some of the meeting's highlights.
9 years of cooperation between China and Central and Eastern European countries, or CEE countries, and is set to continue. During the summit, President Xi Jinping said China plans to import more than $170 billion of goods from CEE countries in the coming 5 years. The Chinese president called for an increase in agricultural trade, saying that China will refine the assessment process for agri-food products from CEE countries and speed up their entry into China.
The full potential of China's vast market and domestic demand generated by its 1.4 billion population, including over 400 million middle-income Chinese, will be unlocked. It will thus boost global demand and create more opportunities for the rest of the world.
President Xi held their trade relations, adding that trade between China and CEE countries increased by nearly 85% compared with 9 years ago. Connectivity has also improved. The China-Europe Railway Express is reaching most of the region, running more than 30,000 freight services. Tourism between the two sides has also prospered. On tackling COVID-19, President Xi said China was ready to cooperate with CEE countries on vaccinations. So far, Serbia has received 1 million doses of vaccines from a Chinese company, and there is ongoing cooperation between Hungary and Chinese vaccine companies. President Xi also emphasized the need to advance international cooperation on climate change, calling for deepened exchanges in green economy, clean energy, and other related areas. Lu Wei, CGTN.
Leaders from both China and Europe agree that the summit provides a useful platform for multilateral cooperation. Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Qin Gang said countries could achieve their goals by working together.
We're committed to openness and inclusiveness and will not form exclusive groups. We follow internationally recognized rules and respect EU standards. We welcome the active participation of other countries and international organizations to achieve win-win outcomes. China-CEEC cooperation has deepened China-European cooperation and has become an important part of the overall development of China-European relations.
Let's move to North Africa, where the recently selected Libyan Presidential Council and Prime Minister have been receiving messages of support from rival domestic parties and international players. The diversity in the composition of the new leadership has raised hopes of a smooth transition for the war-torn country. Last Friday, delegates at the UN Libyan Political Dialogue Forum selected 4 politicians to lead the country's next interim executive authority. Here's Adel Amrouchi with more.
Until Libya holds national elections on the 24th of December, 4 Libyan politicians will be leading the nation. Most of them have not been in the public eye in recent years. Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh is from the western region. He's a businessman known for his strong connections to the family of the late Libyan leader Muammar al-Qaddafi before the uprising and the government of national accord after it. The president of the Presidency Council, Mohammed Yunus al-Manfi, is from eastern Libya.
Menfi is a known academic and has strong connections with the Arab world. His first tweet says he will start a trip to Egypt, describing it as a big neighbor. He has contacts with the Tunisian president too. Dbeibah has good ties with Turkey, so there is a balance in the composition of 4 leaders selected.
Menfi has 2 deputies. Both are former members of the Presidential Council led by the Government of National Accords Faiz al-Sarraj. Musa al-Koni from southern Libya resigned from the Sarraj-led council, citing its failure to achieve what Libyans wanted. Abdallah Hussein al-Lafi from the west, on the other hand, was a vocal protester against the civil war fought in recent years.
To a great extent, this team will form a cabinet and there will be a kind of stability. That is mainly because the lifetime of this government is short until elections are held in December. They don't have the authority to sign any treaty with other nations. The task is specific and they are not allowed to run for any office.
Dbeibah hopes to unite Libyans and establish a state monopoly controlling arms and stopping militias from operating in the country. Menfi will focus on developing a unified vision for Libya's future. Al-Koni wants to speed up the bringing together of all government institutions, while al-Lafi's main interest is to maintain stability, security and introduce relief to detainees held by rival sides during the civil war.
So the new leaders of Libya's executive authority are not a political threat to factions interested to join the general elections this December. That may bring them unanimous support from the country so that they can work on the issues each of them is concerned about. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
In Somalia, opposition leaders have announced that they no longer recognize the current president, Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. This is after his mandate ended on the 8th of February and talks to resolve an election standoff failed to make headway. Reporting from Mogadishu, here's CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo with more.
Abdurrahman Abdushakur Warsame is a presidential candidate in the upcoming Somali election. Warsame is a strong critic of the current government and is one of several candidates advocating for the removal of President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo from future election talks. That's after talks between regional and federal leaders collapsed last week in the central Somali town of Dhusamareb.
He doesn't want any electoral model to be implemented, and he's now seeking extending his mandate from the already expired parliament. So we are against that move, and we want Farmajo to be excluded from the coming discussion, and being his mandate ended, and he's the obstacle of the process.
On Monday, the mandate of the executive officially expired, with no clear plans on how to conduct parliamentary, Senate and presidential elections. The government has proposed a new round of talks to end the stalemate, but many political parties have opposed that.
Where we proposed for establishing Transitional National Council consisting of the federal member states, the opposition candidates, as well as civil society members. So we had that consultation, and we are continue having that consultation with the other stakeholders to form that transitional council, because we regard that transitional council only can safeguard the sovereignty of the nation, that period of transition.
More than a dozen candidates, including former presidents, have announced that they will no longer recognize Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo as the Somali president. They've accused him of failing to implement a deal to hold elections. Under the plan, polls will be held in 2 districts in each of the country's 5 regional administrations. Meanwhile, election for lawmakers and senators from Somaliland and the Banadi region will take place in the capital, Mogadishu. The Council of Presidential Candidates now says a new timetable, backed by all political stakeholders, must first be drafted.
It will be a transitional council, chaired by one of the most senior elected politicians or politician among the other stakeholders, and that person will convene a conference between the federal member states and federal government, as well as the presidential candidates, and they will agree a new timetable for the election with the minimum time of agreed by all the stakeholders.
Experts have urged political leaders to prioritize Somalia's interests and avoid possible conflict.
It's time leaders talked about the interest of the public, not their personal interest. It's now the time to end clan-based politics and focus on the bigger picture.
On Wednesday, Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble will address Parliament. The agenda will be to discuss his first 100 days in office. Members of the opposition are worried that Roble will attempt to seek an extension of the mandate for the executive, a move the opposition has warned will lead to a major setback for the country's political progress. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
More news making headlines after the break. Here's what's still to come. In China, a WHO-led team says lab leak theory is extremely unlikely as it completes its study on the origin of the coronavirus. And Namibia to auction 170 elephants in the latest effort to reduce rising herd numbers.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. A team made up of experts from the World Health Organization and China has completed its study in Wuhan on tracing the origins of the coronavirus. Xie Ruishu reports.
The experts held a news conference in Wuhan on Tuesday afternoon, with both sides presenting their conclusions after 4 weeks of research.
The findings suggest that the laboratory incident hypothesis is extremely unlikely and to explain the introduction of the virus into the human population.
Amberag also suggested future studies should focus on facts and conducting systematic analysis. While conducting research, the team visited Wuhan's Huanan seafood market, where the first COVID-19 cases were detected in December 2019. Experts revealed their findings on the market during a press conference.
According to our trace and analysis of early cases, it showed that Huanan seafood market was one of the locations where cluster infections took place. So far, we can't tell how the novel coronavirus arrived in Huanan seafood market and other markets.
The WHO international expert team arrived in Wuhan on January 14th. The team completed a 14-day quarantine and then began discussions and data analysis with their Chinese peers. The team's research in Wuhan included visits to the hospitals which treated early COVID-19 cases, seafood markets, centers of disease control and prevention, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Experts say that future studies will head wherever indicated and not be geographically bound. 夏瑞雪 CGTN 武汉湖北 Province.
The UK has announced new requirements for international travelers entering the country. Passengers must not take 3 coronavirus tests. Those who don't comply will be fined. The measures are aimed at keeping the variant first identified in South Africa out of the UK. From London, here's Nicole Johnston with that report.
Travelling into the UK has just become much harder. Not only will passengers have to take a PCR COVID-19 test before they board the flight, they will then have to take an extra 2 tests on day 2 and day 8 during their 10-day quarantine period and pay for all 3 tests.
And we'll be putting in place tough fines for people who don't comply. This includes a £1,000 penalty for any international arrival who fails to take a mandatory test, a £2,000 penalty to any international arrival who fails to take the second mandatory test, as well as automatically extending their quarantine period to 14 days.
Also from Monday, passengers who arrive from one of 33 countries where it's feared cases of the variant first identified in South Africa have spread, will have to quarantine in a hotel, again at their own expense.
When they arrive, they'll be escorted to a designated hotel, which will be closed to guests who aren't quarantining for 10 days or for longer if they test positive for COVID-19 during their stay. We've contracted 16 hotels for an initial 4,600 rooms, and we will secure more as they are needed.
All these border restrictions are aimed at one thing: keeping the variant first identified in South Africa out of the UK. But it appears it's no more transmissible than the UK's dominant variant.
And because of that, there is no reason to think the South African variant will catch up or overtake our current virus in the next few months. And that's a really important point.
And as for a holiday abroad, you can forget that.
It is, of course, illegal to travel abroad without a legally permitted reason to do so, so it's illegal to travel abroad for holidays and other leisure purposes.
So right now there's no excuse for leaving the UK, unless, of course, it's for good. Nicole Johnston, CGTN, London.
A once little-known charity has become a lifeline for thousands of Egyptians as they face challenges through the pandemic. In a country where government health resources can be stretched at times, the support by the Mersal Foundation has been welcomed by many. Yasser Hakim tells us more.
It's another busy day at the office for Hiba Rashid. The former project manager and linguistics graduate established the Mersal Foundation in 2015 as a charity specializing in supporting patients with different health conditions.
We help everyone unable to receive medical services from anywhere. We even brought patients from refugee camps abroad, from conflict areas like Yemen and Sudan. We work on all diseases. We also provide aid and services to hospitals and in urban areas that lack medical facilities. I like total privacy for our patients. No contact with media, no pics or videos for them, no ads. I like to preserve their dignity.
The outbreak of the coronavirus in March 2020 was the turning point for Rashid and her small organization.
The first 2 months were a nightmare. I've been working in the field for 18 years since 2002 and had never seen such psychological, mental and physical pressure. This is an epidemic that has hit the world and not just here.
As the pandemic took its toll and more coronavirus cases were reported, state-owned health facilities were overstretched. Many people reached out to charities, such as Mersal Foundation, for help.
We were not ready financially and did not have enough manpower. The pressure was huge. The number of patients increased and we had to seek finance and donations for them. In the first weeks, I personally worked at the call center and received distress calls on my personal phone. I wouldn't sleep for days due to the huge pressure to provide beds, equipment and medicine to those in need.
The success in helping the needy has thrust the foundation and Hiba Rashid to fame.
They have helped by delivering masks, sanitizers, oxygen tanks to our neighborhood, as well as finding hospital beds for patients and paying for their treatment.
They have played a crucial role in supporting the government during this ordeal by providing all kinds of services and equipment to fight the coronavirus. We thank them very much for their efforts.
The 300,000 registered followers on the Mersal Foundation's Facebook page regularly benefit from online health services. The foundation has also helped treat over 5,000 coronavirus patients in a few months.
We managed to expand in all directions. Many more patients, much more donations, more services, and we also opened more branches.
The work of the foundation continues as the coronavirus remains a threat. But even when the COVID-19 pandemic is eventually contained, the Mersal Charity Foundation says it will continue with its charity work to help the poor suffering from other ailments. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
In an effort to encourage the youth to participate in continental discussions, young people in Ethiopia held a simulation of the just concluded African Union Summit. The exercise, which is supported by the African Union, hoped to include the youth in decision-making. The simulation exercises took place in various parts of the continent, and the ideas raised there were then taken back to leaders for consideration. CGTN's Kalecho Wanjohi reports.
Every young person here represents an African head of state. Emulating the protocols of a real African Union summit, they are expressing themselves on what they feel needs to be given priority this year, based on the recommendations of the just concluded African Union summit.
Leadership and knowing with the other cultures and making decisions and diplomacy, they will learn such kind of things. So this is very important. They used to know more about, and when they participate on these things, they will understand more Africa as well as the global issues.
Each person is given time to present ideas of the country that he or she represents.
When they make a speech or 5 minutes on presenting the position paper of their countries, this is very important to know, to share the countries of other countries. So it's really to know how much the youth how much they are understanding the topic of what the issue were raised, and then bringing of the ideas and decision making to the country.
The African Union that is also participating is encouraging every country to have such a setup.
Simply, it's going to be more of giving directions for youth to how to really play a role in the policy making level, but most importantly is to learn and to gain skills. Gain skills in understanding what is the African Union, gaining skills on how to formulate a policy, and gaining skills in how to really interact with the people.
The African Union began supporting the youth simulation exercises in 2013. For all those years, the activity was held in the same room where African leaders meet for their summit here at the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa, and it would include youth from all member states. This year, however, this could not happen because of the COVID-19 pandemic. In a move to pull the young generation closer, the African Union has dedicated November as the Africa Youth Month. The young people hope that this continental momentum will not be overshadowed by the COVID-19 pandemic that seems to be now the core focus of African leaders. Colette Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Namibia is selling 170 elephants in an auction aimed at reducing growing herds blamed for attacks on humans. Over the past few weeks, the animals, including rare desert elephants and calves, have been rounded up in remote northern areas of the country. Here's Angela Coppola with more.
Namibia has been hard hit by a drought, and the elephants are destroying what little vegetation is left. There have also been instances of elephant-human conflict, and authorities are concerned that such incidents will increase.
Elephants are big mammals, sometimes very aggressive, and so the people that live next to these animals face consequences at times. And this will include damages to their crops, damages to their infrastructure, water infrastructure. Also, at times, they even threaten their livelihoods. So it is for this reason that we have decided to reduce the numbers of elephants in specific areas, so that we give these people a little bit of relief in terms of the damages that they do incur.
Conservationists are up in arms against the auction, but authorities say they are proceeding with their plans.
Most of our critics that have criticized this move are basically not Namibians, because Namibians do understand why we are doing what we are doing. We have a few people and a few organizations that feel that this move is not really necessary. And I think they are the ones that are advocating for the stop of this auction.
The Namibian constitution says that all resources, including elephants in the country, should be utilized for the benefit of all Namibians.
This auction fits in the bigger picture of conservation, where we are saying that we need to have the buy-in of the local people. These people must agree that we need to conserve our wildlife in the land that they also share. Otherwise, if they feel that there is no benefit at all, these people themselves are going to be killing these elephants in a retaliation.
The ministry says the auction will go ahead. It's unclear who is interested in buying the elephants and for how much, because all the expressions of interest are locked away in a Namibian government tender box at the moment. The battle between authorities and conservationists continues, and it's unlikely to be resolved anytime soon. Meanwhile, those elephants are still out there. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, staying on the topic of wildlife, let's head over to Senegal, where an autopsy has revealed that the avian flu was responsible for the deaths of at least 750 pelicans in northern Senegal. Rangers found the pelicans on January the 23rd in the Juge Bird Sanctuary. The sanctuary is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that provides refuge for millions of migratory birds. With more on that story, here's CGTN's Tulisha Balala.
Following the deaths of many pelicans, the Senegalese authorities carried out an autopsy.
The laboratory that carried out the study concluded that pelicans died from bird flu. In collaboration with the Ministry of Livestock, the Minister of Agriculture and the Secretary General of the government, we immediately set up a monitoring committee since last Friday. At the moment, agents are in the field to take samples. Precautionary measures have also been taken. The park has been closed to the public. Likewise, all the birds that have died have been destroyed and buried with the support of the Ministry of Health Services.
The death of the long-beaked birds has caused concern among the Senegalese people. But government officials have assured the public that they are taking appropriate measures to prevent the spread of the bird flu.
There is no need to be afraid, because in this case there is a regional and sub-regional organization that can help us to deal with the situation. In Senegal, we have One Health, which is housed at the level of the Secretary General of the government and which federates all the services concerned by this type of problem. Since the circumstances of the death of the pelicans have been known, all these entities have been working, and the moment will come when all the information collected will be brought to the attention of the public.
This is the second time that birds have died in similar circumstances in Senegal in the space of a few weeks. 60,000 chicks died following a bird flu outbreak in December 2020. Thuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Well, let's now take a short break and return your business news, including Nigeria's central bank orders financial institutions to close down all accounts involved in the transfer of exchange of cryptocurrencies.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home, and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Time now for the business news. Just like the rest of the world, Africa's aviation industry has been enormously affected by the pandemic. At the end of last year, the International Air Transport Association had projected that Africa's aviation recovery would be weaker than expected, reaching a mere 30% of 2019 levels. In absolute numbers, the region was expected to see around 45 million travelers in 2020, rising to about 70 million in 2021. It's reported that a full return to 2019 levels of 155 million travelers to the continent is not expected until late of 2023. As countries across Africa reopen their borders, domestic travel is picking up, however. International travel remains heavily constrained. Well, Nigeria's central bank has ordered financial institutions to close down all accounts involved in the transfer or exchange of cryptocurrencies. Africa's largest economy has become a huge market for the trade. It's among the leading markets in the world. For several years, though, the Apex Bank has warned that cryptocurrencies are not regulated, nor are they legal tender in the country. For what the central bank's order regarding this trade now means for the market in Nigeria, here's CGTN's Phil Ihaza reporting from Abuja.
Ayola Daudu has been trading in cryptocurrency for 8 years. He teaches other young beginners to trade as well. He says the recent ban by the government on crypto trading in Nigeria has cast doubt on the business.
Several people are panicking, and it's not good for the business anyway, because you don't want to put your money, you want to withdraw your money, and so many people are complaining. And for me, I believe it's quite challenging. Because
cryptocurrency is a digital medium of exchange, also called crypto coins, created by programmers for businesses to transact. It's different from the conventional currencies like the naira or dollar because it's a set of numbers unique to the owner and cannot be regulated by financial institutions. The Central Bank of Nigeria says many criminals could launder money through cryptocurrencies as a way to avoid government scrutiny.
They can't regulate the supply, they can't print it, they can't determine its value, they can't track who owns a cryptocurrency and who doesn't own a cryptocurrency. And so, it's something that they're still trying to learn about, they're still trying to adapt to. And for that reason, the Nigerian Central Bank and, central banks in a couple of countries are a bit wary of crypto.
Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency released in 2009, is now valued at over $45,000 per Bitcoin. And within the last 5 years, Nigerians have traded in more than $500 million worth of Bitcoins, making it the second highest trading country after the US. That's according to a top Bitcoin trading platform, Paxful.
With the notable rise in value of cryptocurrencies, many Nigerians now see it as a digital asset to make extra income and investments, especially as the country's economy is currently under recession and unemployment rate is at record highs.
Although crypto traders in Nigeria may not necessarily lose their investment, they may not be able to buy or withdraw the coins directly into their Naira accounts while the ban holds. Experts say the government may need to develop ways to adopt the currency as a legal tender, just like the US, so that citizens can take advantage of the benefits of crypto.
People are investing in crypto as a way to hedge against inflation. You don't want to keep your money in Naira. Today, inflation is 15.7%. People are trying to protect their earning power, right? And so people are investing in crypto. You can't just wipe all these benefits away, with a stroke of a regulation. It's important to innovate around it.
That's something crypto traders like Ayola are hoping the government does soon so that more people can trade easily with crypto in Nigeria. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
They don't look at the short-term investment.
The largest media firm in East Africa has rolled out a paywall across its online properties. It's doing this in a bid to replace lost revenue from its print and broadcast operations. Annual revenues at the Nation Media Group peaked in 2013 at 13.4 billion. They've fallen every year since then to just over 9 billion Kenya shillings in 2019. This drop in revenue is not because Kenyans are consuming less news. What has changed is the way in which news is consumed. In the 5 years to 2019, the volume of English newspapers sold in the country fell by 20%, while the average number of daily visitors to news websites rose by over 80%. The trend suggests that demand for news has not changed, but where and how the news is consumed is changing. But in a market where consumers have been accustomed to not paying for news online, how will NMG convert those millions of online consumers into paying clients? Well, that's the question that we put the firm's editorial director, Mutuma Mathieu, to answer.
I think there is a strong element of faith involved in business and risk-taking. By and large, people are not used to paying for content online. But from what we have seen in other jurisdictions and from the statistics that we have from early testing, we think that we'll get a critical mass of people who are willing to pay for compelling, good quality, relevant content.
So to what extent then do you expect this transition, at least on the revenue side of it, for the revenue that will come in from subscriptions, from digital ads, to at least offset to a large extent the decline in revenue we've seen from the decline rather in print circulation revenue and print ad revenue?
You know, the print and broadcast side of business is recovering from the effects of last year. The media business in Kenya remains very strong and very profitable. And then on the other hand, even though we are determined to see revenue from the digital side, we know we won't be in a hurry to begin to see digital flows at any meaningful level. But we think that maybe in 2-3 years, maybe that side of the operation will be just as profitable as the other side.
One of the stats that stood out for me when I was looking at the industry statistics, on average, you're looking at around 2.9, maybe 3 million people who visit news websites on a daily basis within the country. If you use that as our starting point, what percentage of that number do you have to convert into paying clients in order to make this operation as profitable as you hope within that 2 to 3 year window you've identified?
There is an industry standard of the rate of conversion, but we have to be careful about that because it depends on the local circumstances. In some markets, it's an average of 1%. In other markets, it's much higher. But let's remember that Kenya is a heavily digital market. In most countries in Africa, and probably in most other parts of the world, people are not used to making mobile payments. But this is digital country. People consume media, people shop, people make payments for rent, for their air tickets, for virtually everything on their mobile devices. So I think it might be a lot easier for us to convert our readers and the rest of our audience into payers because of the ease of mobile payments within the economy.
How many have signed up to date for specifically for the content that they would need to access only under Nation Prime?
We fired up the paywall yesterday. I think it's very, very early for us to put figures to some of these things, but our expectations are not very high. But I think we are doing, on average, 2,000 people a day. That might pick up. That may slow down. But we're taking a long-term perspective. If at the end of 2021, we have between 500,000 and 1 million registered users, because when you build that kind of audience and you understand it and you can interact with it, and it becomes a lot easier now to do the subscription, and also it becomes easier for you to serve that audience, not just with content, but also with a certain level of advertising. But if we can register between 500,000 and 1 million users by the end of 2021, And if we have maybe 50,000 to 100,000 subscribers, then we will consider ourselves to have done reasonable.
In April of 2018, Tunisia became the first African country to pass an entrepreneur-focused legislation known as the Startup Act. The law provides eye-catching incentives, including a state-funded salary for up to 3 founders per company during the first year of operation. It also includes tax breaks and a 1-year leave period for public and private sector employees to set up a new business. 3 years on, CGTN's Adnan Chouachi explores how the Startup Act has enhanced innovation in Tunisia.
There are 401 labeled startups in Tunisia. Authorities say the Startup Act is providing support from the stage of the project idea to that of the launch of the business and its internationalization.
The Startup Act is a unique legal framework in Tunisia. It was designed in a collaborative and participatory manner with all the stakeholders of the startup ecosystem, entrepreneurs, accelerators, investors, administrations, and civil society. The government accompanies entrepreneurs and grants many incentives to develop their businesses.
Alien Dimension is one of the most successful labeled startups in Tunisia. It introduces immersive reality and technologies into education and culture. The company creates educational content through augmented reality and the reconstruction of archaeological monuments.
Our startup transforms extracurricular activities in which children have difficulties such as astronomy into a simple experience through immersive reality. This is how they can grasp any topic through technology. As for the reconstruction of ancient ruins, we created a whole gadget that tourists and visitors of archaeological sites can use to see how the sites looked like thousands of years ago.
Hinda Sahnun is the CEO of EducArt. The labeled startup offers 3D construction games that illustrate heritage with educational support in augmented reality.
After making his own creation with a construction game, the client uses the mobile application with the augmented reality to travel to any era. The user can discover new civilizations. A Roman gladiator guides him in El Gem Coliseum. He can also learn about dinosaurs which lived in the south of Tunisia.
According to the ICT department, level startups generated cumulative turnover of over $30 million in 2020, 72% of which was generated in the domestic market. These companies employ over 3,000 engineers and technicians in different fields. Tunisian authorities assert that the number of companies that will benefit from the Startup Act will rise to 1,000 over the next 5 years. The labeled startups will be granted additional funding and incentives in order to create over 10,000 jobs in the ICT and finance sectors. Adnan Chouachi, CGTN, Tunis.
Well, while the pandemic has forced several businesses to shut down, some have adapted to the challenges and have stayed afloat. This ability to adapt has reaped tremendous benefit for some, among them a number of tea drink chains in China. CGTN's Gao Ang reports.
While many companies reported losses in 2020, others saw their businesses growing despite the pandemic. Just last year, a popular tea drink chain in China expanded to 18 cities, opening over 200 new stores.
I'm now at Beijing Chaoyang Joy City's Haiti store. Among the brand's almost 700 branches across the country, this one has hit a record high in sales last year.
Customers can order through an app and pick up their drinks in-store.
It saves time. I can order when I'm on the way here and avoid queuing. I think this is very convenient for customers.
Haiti says this option has been a long-term strategy.
We actually began our Haiti Go program in September 2018 to encourage consumers to purchase drinks online. This has made us recover from the pandemic fairly fast.
Last year, the Haiti Go app gained 13 million new users, in addition to its 35 million users. Haiti says over 75% of its online users last year chose to pick up their drinks in-store.
So I've just got my drink after putting an order online 40 minutes ago on my way here. Customers say they enjoy the convenience and save time ordering this way. But they are also calling for cheaper prices and more online promotion.
I usually drink Haiti, but it's like no matter how many drinks I buy from them, I don't get any discounts. I hope they make their prices more affordable and open branches in residential communities.
But it's not just Haiti that saw growth in 2020. Other chains, such as Nairobi, also expanded with almost 500 new stores across China. According to an industry report, China saw a rise in tea beverage stores last year in low-tier cities, with a growth rate of over 30%. Well, at the end of the day, it seems nothing beats a warm or cool cup of tea. Gang, CGTN, Beijing.
Let's now take a short break and return your sport news, including CGTN speaks to South Africa's legendary footballer Benny McCarthy, now new coach of Durban's Amazulu FC.
When we first started looking at giraffes, we thought they were everywhere. But they've gone extinct in at least 7 African countries in the last 100 years.
Giraffe numbers continue to decline in the wild, and only 10% of their historical range remains.
We can see the giraffes there.
A team of conservationists, led by Dr. Julian Fennessy, commit to save Africa's giraffe before it's too late.
Animal data, you copy.
Get ready.
Wait. Hold. Cross it.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's start our sports news on the football field.